Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Nathan. Nathan is a youth motivational speaker. He is also known as No Nick Nate. He goes around the country speaking to middle schoolers about the effects of vaping and cigarettes and tobacco. He himself is 22 years sober. He has quite a story. Trigger warning, we do talk about sexual assault. He has come through a lot in his life, and his story is definitely one of overcoming and resilience. I know you guys are going to love this episode. Let's get into it. We just met.
We're BFFs forever now.
We need bracelets, I think.
I know, yes. The
Yes.
heart necklaces.
Yeah, like the best and then the friend.
Yeah,
I love it so much. So me and Nathan know each other through the online recovery community. It's interesting. I actually picked a quote about integrity because I saw a video that you had done on integrity, and I was like, he's a cool guy. We need to be friends.
I'm wondering what video that was.
I'll tell you, I wrote it down. I wrote what you said. Okay, you said, when you walk with integrity, you don't have to explain yourself. That stopped me when you said that. I said, I need him on my show. That was a good quote.
It's a truth in my life, and I haven't always lived that way, but I realized the difference in the way that I used to live versus the way that I live now. And for a long time, I had to explain where I was going, what I was doing, who I was going to be with, what time I'd be home. And now I don't have to do that anymore. And I'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's so different to walk in integrity and not have to explain what you're doing, where you're going, who you're going to be with.
It's freedom, to be honest,
Yeah,
Where are you coming in from? What part of America?
Really close to Knoxville, Tennessee. So we live probably about 30 minutes away from Knoxville on the west side of it. And we live in a small rural community. And it's such a blessing to live here because you really get to make a lot of connections. And because it's a small town. So I absolutely love it. I've lived everywhere. I've lived everywhere. My dad was in the Air Force. I have lived everywhere. And this is my absolute favorite place that I've ever lived.
I love that. My dad was in the Air Force too. So we literally lived everywhere. And then he ended up in Knoxville. And I loved Knoxville. I felt like Knoxville is like Pleasantville. Do you remember that movie where everyone's like on the side of the street just waving to everyone? That's what I felt like Knoxville is like.
Yes, it's like the perfect little world. I'm in Knoxville quite often, and like the downtown area, and I love it. I love it down there.
Yeah. I love the South. I've been all over. The South just will always have my heart. We're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And like I said, yours is about integrity. So the quote is actually from Bob Marley. You familiar with him?
I know Bob Marley.
I loved his music. May he rest in peace. He died way too young,
Way too young.
Yeah. But I loved everything he embodied. I mean, peace, love, unity in his music and just in his presence. But the way the quote goes, it is, the greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. What does that quote mean to you?
When I think about that, I have been financially well. I've been poor, dirt poor, climbed out of being dirt poor. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's such a truth because it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still be doing things that are the opposite of integrity, right? It's a negative characteristic of someone to have money and then treat their family like garbage, right? That is not integrity. Being on both sides of the coin allows me to open my mind to different possibilities and open my mind to being self-aware and aware of my community, right? If you're walking in integrity, you're going to love other people. You are going to take care of it. You're going to have compassion for other people. And for me, I'm 22 years in recovery, but I'm going back into the difficult places and pulling people out so they can begin their experience. Well, I definitely don't do it for money because there's not a lot in it. So it's just about loving others and being compassionate and caring for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this topic of integrity. Integrity is one of my core values. That's something I did in recovery was really focus on what my core values are because for me that's the foundation of my house. And no matter what happens in life, I will do everything from my core values. So I think when I was in active addiction, I did not have integrity. I was a flaky person, if you will. I wasn't good on my word. I was just like flailing through life like a dead fish flopping around, you know? So something about integrity is that it's something you have to work on, right? And it's something you have to constantly remind yourself that you have to be strong and you have to be authentic to who you are. Because if you constantly are doing inauthentic things, you literally have zero integrity and nobody's going to take you at your word. And no one's going to want to be your friend, trust you, do business with you. So I think it's a really important core value for me personally to have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when I first got married, I didn't have that integrity. I was still drinking very heavily. I wasn't using any drugs at the time, but I was drinking very heavily. And I would tell my wife I was going to go to my mom and dad's house and watch a movie, but I would go to a bar or I'd go to a friend's house and drink a 12 pack just so that she wouldn't know. And I remember when she told me, like, you got to make a decision. You can be a husband, a father, or you can live the life that you're living, but you can't do both. And she was calling me out on, listen, you're not being honest. You're not being truthful. And she couldn't be married to somebody who was going to make her worry or wonder. And, sometimes be upset because she doesn't know where I am. She doesn't know what I'm doing. She doesn't know who I'm with. And it's so different, like after I got my act together, and found sobriety, our marriage became different in a sense. It was almost like she had some rules for me. If I went to the store, I had like 30 minutes and not out of control, but out of, listen, right now, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if you have that integrity. So I had to work that integrity every single day until she was like, oh, you're going to the store? All right, I'll see you later.
Yeah, it's something that you had to earn, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
I think the quote also brings up a really kind of interesting topic about affecting people positively. I think so many people are reactive when they walk into a room, like I'm only going to be nice to you if you're nice to me. And I love how Bob Marley kind of makes us think about, well, what about if we influence the energy in the room instead of adapting to it, influence it, and by that positively. You know what I mean? And see how your life changes after that.
It's so funny that you said that. I messaged someone today and I have a workshop coming up for students in our town, and I messaged them and I said, "Hey, would you share this flyer for me on Facebook?" And their response was, "I'll tell you what, I'll share yours if you share mine." And I just kind of thought for a minute and I was like, I don't know that I want them to share mine now.
Hmm.
I still did it anyways because I want them to be successful too at the end of the day. So, but that just rubbed me wrong. Giving is not about receiving. Giving is not about what you get in return. I mean, the value that you get in return is the joy. It's the rest that someone might get because you provided a hotel room, right? It's the sobriety that somebody enters into because you found them a sober living house or treatment center. That's the return. It's not a, hey, if I help you, now you have to help me.
Right. Yeah. No, no, I agree with you. So 22 years sober. I cannot wait to hear your story. I do not know your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Cool. I'll give you the short version because we have limited, not a limited amount of time, but I don't have 9 hours. So I started smoking at 12, and I was an Air Force brat and I was insecure with myself, and so when I felt like I wanted to fit in with everybody, I found that was my gateway, I guess, into addiction. And it wasn't really the cigarette, it was the insecurity. But the cigarette really ignited the spark of a whole wildfire of bad decisions. And so I had gone to a birthday party and was offered a cigarette. A girl said she would be my girlfriend, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this." And so we smoked a cigarette. She was like, "Hey, I was just messing with you." And so I immediately went home. I just felt so crushed and so naive. And so when I went home, my parents could smell the cigarette smoke on me. But they had this opportunity to not just ground me. They had this opportunity to educate me. And I think that we've lost our way for education in a sense because we will discipline before we educate. And discipline is great, but it has to be a component of education, it has to partner with education. And my parents didn't do that. You know, it was just you're grounded for 2 weeks. And after that 2 weeks, I knew that that cigarette made me feel different and I liked feeling different. And so I went right back to smoking cigarettes. I would go up to the base exchange and I would wait for someone to walk in and put their cigarette in the ashtray and I would take the cigarette and I'd go smoke it, you know? And so that's where it started for me. By the time I was 14, freshman in high school, I was drinking alcohol very heavily, marijuana, using marijuana very heavily, and just getting kicked out of school consistently. Didn't feel like I had value or worth. Still just felt like I was trying to find where I was supposed to fit in at, and I didn't understand the fact that I didn't have to fit in, that I was perfectly fine as a person. And so I just kept on that track. And when I was 18, my best friend died in a motorcycle accident. And I just kept spiraling from there. Didn't graduate high school. I got kicked out of high school 3 weeks before graduation. And I eventually got my high school diploma, but that continued that spiral. So after I got kicked out, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and just decided to go. I don't care. I don't care what he thinks. I don't have any plans. I'm just gonna go. And so I went and jumped around on couches for a while, but got really, really heavy into marijuana in Arizona. And then the drinking just that was my worst thing, was drinking. If there was a bar or a liquor store anywhere in my path, I was gonna go. And so Arizona is where I got introduced to cocaine and I started using cocaine, but still alcohol was my major. Like I couldn't go through the day without alcohol. I would drink at work. I would, drink on lunch break. I would drink on the way home. I would drink at home. And it just like life was not going well. My parents reached out to me and they said, "Hey, if you want out of that life that you're living, we're in Nashville, Tennessee now, and you can come to Nashville. But like this is your last chance. We're not giving you another opportunity. This is it. If you mess this up, we're really done with you. We don't want anything to do with you if you mess this up." And I knew that I wanted something different, but I didn't know what it was. And so I decided to go to Nashville, Tennessee. My dad helped me get a really good job, but I had to stay sober for 30 days. That was like the longest 30 days of my life because I needed to pass a drug test to get the job. So my dad got me a job as a baggage handler at Southwest Airlines. He was in the Air Force 20 years, and then he was in maintenance at Southwest Airlines for 25 years. So he really put his name on the line for me, and I started being a baggage handler, but I didn't change my life. The first person I could find that was going to go to the bar, I was like, "Hey, can I go with you?" First person that I found that had drugs, I was like, "Hey, can I hang out with you? Where do you live?" And I was not changing my life. I met my wife at work and we started dating, but she didn't know. She didn't know that I was drinking, that I was using drugs. She had no clue. And so when we would go out on a date, I would stay sober and I'd go pick her up. We'd go on our date. I'd drop her off and then I would go do my thing. And she had no clue. But when we got married, it was almost immediate that she was like, "Oh man, I had no idea what I was getting into." And then we had our son, who is now 21 years old, but we had our son and I just wasn't being a dad. I was more focused on drinking and partying because I didn't want to feel any type of emotional pain. I didn't want to feel any type of physical pain. Just didn't want to do any of that. And so there was a night where I came home from the bar. I had gotten off work, came home from the bar at like 2 in the morning, pulled in our driveway, and she was sitting on like the front porch, just waiting for me. And I was like, "Oh man, this is not good." And so I got out of the car and that's the moment she told me, like, "You have to make a decision. I'm willing to help you if you want help, but you can't do both of these things. You can't be a husband and a father and live like this." And so I left. I walked out of the house. I went and got a suitcase and packed my stuff and I left. And I lived in a garage for like 9 months. And right at that ninth month, I woke up one morning and I was like, what am I doing? This doesn't make any sense. And so I called her and I didn't think she would answer, but she answered. And I said, "Hey, I need help. Can I come home?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, come on home." And so I went home and I started walking to what was our bedroom. And she was like, "No, no, no. Like you're in the guest bedroom for now. Like you can't just walk back into my life and think everything's okay." And so that's where my sobriety journey began. And it was tough. I didn't go to treatment, but I went to meetings. I went to AA and NA. And that was probably, well, it's not probably, it's the hardest thing I've ever done because I wanted to be sober, but I didn't know that there were so many underlying issues that I had that was driving the alcoholism and the drug use. And so I had to deal with all of that mess. But finally, I mean, it finally took, and we've been married for 23 years, and I'll tell you, we've never been happier. I mean, life is just so good right now. Yeah, that's the short
Wow.
version.
Your wife sounds like a baddie.
She's absolutely amazing. She was homeless at 13. She would rather live in a camper than deal with what she was dealing with at home. And so she took a different route. Like she was going to be strong, she was going to be tough, and she was going to whatever came at her, she was going to take care of it. Didn't matter. And she knew what to do. I mean, she really knew how to help me because of her own experience.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
that's
sure if you're a spiritual person or not, but I think that God put her in your life.
I know it for sure. I know it for sure. I wouldn't be alive without her,
That's so
you know?
special. I think, our partners, they balance us. You know what I mean? They, the yin and the yang of it all. And it sounds like she extremely balances you out and calls you out on your shit too.
Yeah, she's my counterweight. And even like earlier, I was working on a project, and so I was just hyper focused on it. And she was like, "Hey, you have a podcast in like 15 minutes. You need to wrap that up." I'm like, I got it. So like 5 minutes, she's like, "Hey, seriously,
Yeah.
go get ready, go set it up." I'm like, "All right, I'll take care of it." So she really is
Oh.
my balance. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned you had to figure out some of your underlying issues. Did you ever discover what those were and how did you work on them?
Yeah, it was sexual abuse. I knew it. I mean, I knew it forever. I just didn't want to deal with it. And so therapy, counseling, now they call it shadow work, but it wasn't called that back then. It was like, let's just get into the hard truths. And what happened is not your identity. And I think a lot of times, and your behavior is not your identity. I think a lot of times we see people, we see their behaviors as their identities, and I had to learn that anger and that shame and that frustration, that wasn't my identity. That was just a behavior. But behavior is communication, and I wasn't communicating in the right way.
Yeah. Did the perpetrator get any legal action against them? Or
No.
unfortunately, I've had a few guests on that same thing where nothing ever came of it. And that is extremely frustrating.
It is, and when it's a relative, I will just say this: if you are a parent and you're listening, and your child says, "Hey, our relative did this to me," you need to believe them. You need to believe them. Don't doubt them. Don't say, "Well, are you sure that was what it is?" You need to believe them because as a kid, I didn't have the imagination to make that up.
Yeah. That gave me chills down my spine. Yeah. You're right. You're right, though. You have to believe them. Why would a
Yeah.
kid just make that up?
Yeah. I love my parents dearly. My dad has passed. My mom's still alive. Love them dearly. Back then they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to handle that situation. And I think they tried the best that they could, but I needed a positive experience to overcome that. I needed a lot of positive experiences to overcome that. And I wasn't getting them. And so
Yeah.
I ended up on the path that I was on, which was the
Yeah.
path I was supposed to be on. I mean, I see that clearly. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be on that path because that's
Mhm.
who that's what made me who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's a really tough thing to go through as a kid. I mean, your brain is still evolving. I mean, that's big T trauma. I can tell though, even just talking to you for 20 minutes, that the therapy has helped you a lot because you can tell the weight of it doesn't hold you down anymore.
No, I don't know. I breathe easier, and
Mm-hmm.
you know how your brain works. It'll take a memory from 35 years ago and be like, "Hey, here it is." But I've learned to condition myself to when I have those thoughts, it's pause, and it's I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a part of who I am. And then I
Mm-hmm.
move forward with my day.
Yeah.
What used to last 4 to 6 months of, "I can't believe you let this happen. You should have never let this happen. You're stronger than that. That made you weak." Last 3 to 4 minutes now. And
Yeah.
and it's all because of it doesn't matter. What happened in the past for me doesn't matter. I'm living in the now, and the now is absolutely amazing. And would I love to see justice served? Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would absolutely love that. But that's not in the playing cards, and I can't control that. And
Mhm.
so I have to let that go. If I could control it, I'd be all over it.
You bring up such a good point though. Like we have circumstantial evidence that the future and the past exist, but all we really know is the present moment. That's all that actually exists. That's infinity. But so much of our lives we live so worried about the future or the past that we get stuck, you know? So it's hard to do, but focusing on the right now can help you with most of the problems in your life.
Yeah, and focusing on what you can control. A lot of the things that we worry about, we can't even control. It's completely out of our hands. And if you just focus on the now and what you can control in the now, promise you you're going to be okay.
Yeah. So you got sober, you were young. I'm gonna guess what, early 20s?
23, yeah.
Yeah, you were a
Yeah.
baby. So how was that being a young person in sobriety?
It's weird. I lost all my friends who I thought were friends. And, I tell students this all the time, like, if you decide that you're going to quit vaping and you lose your friends, they weren't your friends to begin with. But it was weird because I lost my friends or I thought were my friends, and I lost the people that I would hang out with at work. And I didn't really have a community. But the only community that I really truly had was going to meetings. And I met a guy there. I met him at AA. Would not stop telling me about Jesus. Like I'm in my early 20s, right? And I'm like, I don't care. Don't tell me anything about him yet. But he would never give up, right? Like let me tell you about what Jesus did for me. And I'm like, oh, please leave me alone. But he was such a great guy, and he ended up becoming my sponsor. And that was my community. And it was so different to be 23 and have a guy that was in his 50s as my sponsor. But he had so much wisdom and experience. And I think that's what helped me move forward so quickly in sobriety, because I felt like it went really fast. The journey of getting sober went really fast for me. But I think that he played a really large part in that.
Yeah. What was that first year like? It sounds like AA was a big part of your story, but what other tools did you use? What was some of the emotional growth you had that first year?
So I read a lot of books, but I read a lot of self-improvement books, self-help books. But really it was more about telling myself that I'm okay being me. Then using the right coping skills when I was scared or when I would have a memory of the abuse. It was using almost like my natural coping skills. I would go to the gym and play basketball. I loved playing basketball. I didn't realize that that was a coping skill for me. So it was doing those things. It was having people to call, having a support system. When I was building my goals and setting my goals, I was one of those things was I had to have 5 support people that I could call at any time. Didn't matter what time it was. Like I just had to have those people. And my dad worked midnights, so he was my midnight to 7 a.m. support system. Like if I got up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, life was terrible, I might as well just go have a drink, I would call my dad. And so it was community. If you can build a community of support, you can get sober. That's all that it is. Some of the things that I was doing, but I was really saying things positive about myself. I wanted to rewire my brain. And so I used to tell myself, Nathan, whenever I'd make a mistake, I'd go, Nathan, you're so stupid. And that went back to, you didn't even graduate high school. You didn't even get a high school diploma. You've never even been to college. You were so dumb. And so I was rewiring my brain so that when I would make a mistake, I would go, hey, you don't have this figured out right now, but you're going to get it figured out. It just takes you a little bit longer, and that's okay.
Yeah. I
And
think that
so,
negative talk can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I mean? But the positive talk can also become one too. So learning that at such a young age is so transformative.
it really is. And I talk about that a lot when I go to schools and speak to students is what we say to ourselves matter. And if you have negative self-talk, you're going to find the negative in your life. If you practice positive self-talk, you are going to be one of the most positive people that's out there. Because it's so true. I watched a video the other day, and it was about this scientist. He was studying water, and so he took 2 cases of water and he said negative things to one case and positive things to the other for like a month. And then he put them under the microscope, and the negative ones had just a really weird image underneath. They were all scattered and it didn't look right. But the positive ones looked like snowflakes. And it was like they just looked beautiful. And it really made such a difference in how you talk to water. And at the end of the video, it was like, hey, you're 70% water. So just remember that. And I'm
Wow.
like, golly. Yeah.
Wow. And that's a good reminder about how we talk to our children too, you know?
Gosh. Yeah.
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 I wanted to ask, what advice would you give someone that's just starting out in sobriety?
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
You need that tattooed on your arm.
I have so many tattoos. I need it. But yeah, it's, you can have 6 months and think, I got it. Success isn't final. You got to work it every single day. If you've completed your goal for the week, for the month, for the year, set another goal. You're not done being successful and you never will be. You have to keep setting new goals. Failure is not fatal. We live in an age now to where we've had record numbers of overdoses, but you're still going. You're still moving, you're still breathing. So I don't even like to call it failure, but just for the quote's sake, that's part of the quote. I call it a learning experience. It's education. Every time we make a mistake, every time we mess up, we're learning something about the situation and we're learning something about ourselves. And then it's the courage to continue that counts. Every single day you have to get up and say, I want this. I want to keep going. This is what I'm living for. This is what I want. And that takes a lot of courage because you're fighting an enemy that just, I mean, it's overwhelming at times. You
Yeah.
need that drink. You deserve that drink. That still pops up in my head today sometimes. Like I'll be at like Texas Roadhouse with my wife, and
Yeah.
we'll be eating steak dinner and I see them walk by with a tray of beers, and my brain will go, oh, you deserve that. It's like, no, no, I don't deserve that. I deserve better than that. And that's
Yeah.
always my response is I deserve better than that. And I actually have it. I
Yeah.
have better than that.
That's awesome. I love that mindset so much. I wanted to ask you about your relationship with God. It sounds like maybe in the beginning you didn't necessarily have a clear one. And so how did that develop over time?
So when we moved to East Tennessee, that was 2009. We still didn't have any relationship with God. Matter of fact, if I was switching through the radio on a drive and it hit on like a Christian song, I couldn't push the button fast enough to move it, to change the channel. And when we got to East Tennessee, we lived in a little apartment, and this lady stopped by and she was like, hey, do you want to go to church? It's right across the street, and we knew it was there. And she saw the kids and she was like, we have Sunday school for them. So you and your wife would get a break, and my wife was like, I think we're going to go try that. And I was like, I don't want to go. And so on Sunday, that Sunday came and she was getting all the kids ready. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, we're going to church. And I was like, good luck. See, I'm not going. And eventually I got dressed that day and I went too. But the more that we went, the more that I just felt God speaking to me and working on my heart and really about healing, that it was okay to forgive myself. And so, I mean, he just kept working on my heart. And so, December of 2010, I was sitting in church and they were doing the altar call, like, hey, if you want a relationship with Jesus, just come up here to the front, talk with the pastor. And I sat down, everybody's standing, and I sat down and I said, all right, God, if you're real, if this is real, when I open my eyes, someone else is going to be up there. And if someone else is up there, I'll go. I had sat through countless altar calls where no one moved. No one moved. And so I said, okay, if someone's up there, then I will believe that you are real. And I said, count to three, like I'm giving you 3 seconds. That's all you get. Like putting a time limit on God, right? The one that lives outside of time and space. And I was like, 3, 2, 1. And I opened my eyes and my wife was walking up to the front.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just remember that moment. And my first immediate thought was, well, great. Now the pastor's going to think because she's getting saved, I'm getting saved. It's that moment. And like he really did ask me, a couple of questions. He was like, hey, is this for real? And so I told him what I was praying. And he was like, oh man, to God be the glory.
Uh,
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful story. That made me tear up a little bit.
It's good
Yeah,
tears.
they
It's
are
good
good
tears.
tears. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful life moment. Your wife going up there. And yeah, I mean, I think, everyone's relationship with God is unique. And some people find spirituality in other ways. I know
Yep.
for me, that was a huge part of my recovery story. I found God begging for him to save me on my knees on my bathroom floor as a broken woman. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's been such a huge part. I mean, it's part of it is my foundation. I do everything from the foundation of God now. And it's been life changing for me. And we talked about integrity in the beginning of the episode. Same with spirituality. I've had to really work on that relationship. It didn't just come overnight and my life was instantly changed. It was something I've continued to work on and is still evolving.
Yeah. You have to put in the work. Welcome to the club, right? It's not something that just comes naturally. You don't just wake up one day and go, okay, I'm spiritual now, right? I pray now and
Mhm.
I study now, right? It really does it takes work
Yeah.
and you have to put in the work, but it's so worth it. It's so
Yeah.
worth
It
it.
is. Jesus, I know him. I love him.
I know him too.
You too.
I love him.
That's amazing. I wanted to talk about all of the cool stuff you're doing. So I found you on Instagram through all these videos that you make because you are a youth motivational speaker and you go around all over the country, but specifically to, it sounds like middle schools. Is that right? And
Yeah,
talk to them.
I try to focus on middle schools. That was such an impactful part of my life that's where I want to be. I will go to elementary schools and high schools. And I speak to teachers at conferences too, because there were teachers that missed a lot of signals on a lot of signs and so I go to conferences, speak to them as well.
So my question for you there is, how did you get into doing this? How long have you been doing it? And what do you talk about at these conferences?
Yeah. So I started working at a nonprofit 7 years ago, and it was a substance use prevention coalition. And so I started working there as a prevention coordinator. I would go into schools and I would teach them evidence-based curriculum. And there's an event every year called Red Ribbon Week. Do you know what Ribbon Week is?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right, cool. So when I started at the coalition, there was a lady who was training me and she had an assembly set up at a school. And so she's like, don't worry about it. Like I'm doing it. I'll just kind of walk you through it. You can just kind of be there to help me along and I'll introduce you and stuff. And so the day before the assembly, I came into the office and the executive director was like, hey, she quit. You're on your own. Good luck. And
Whoa.
I was like, I don't even know what to do. And so that night, I went home and my wife has one of those crickets, and I was like, "Can you make me a T-shirt?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll make you a T-shirt." And I was like, "Okay." It says, "Say no to drugs, say yes to tacos." That was my first campaign.
That's catchy.
But I went to the school, did a really quick assembly with the students, and didn't know what I was doing, but I loved every minute of it. And so the next Red Ribbon Week, we brought in this guy named Matt Scaletti, and he was an American Ninja Warrior. He was on the show, and he wasn't sober when he was on the show. And so he came and he talked about his recovery story, and we became really good friends. And he really encouraged me to put my story together, to craft my story, and start to tell it. And so it took about 3 years for me to do that. That happened in 2019. I started sharing my story locally, and I was getting a lot of good feedback. 2020 happened, and I did some virtual conferences, but no schools. 2021, I got my first paid speaking gig outside of the coalition, and then I started to learn like how to reach out to schools, how to talk to the right people, how to get booked. And so 22 did I think I did like 5 paid speaking gigs, and I thought that was the moon, right? I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then 2024, I did 26 paid speaking gigs, and then in October of 2024, I realized this is a place I have to make a decision. I have to decide, do I stay at the nonprofit or do I go? Because other people are picking up my slack while I'm gone, and I'm gone a lot. Or do I want to be selfish and stay? And that was my answer, right? That was my question. Do I want to be selfish and stay? And so I left October of 2024, and I didn't know how it was going to go because I didn't have anything lined up in October. And I was 1 week out of work, and I was booked. I mean, I just started booking schools and taking off. So I speak about my nicotine use as a kid, because vaping is such an issue in our schools today. I go by No Nick Nate, No Nicotine Nate. And so I take that into schools. We have some really fun activities that we do in school assemblies. And then I also developed a program. It's a diversion program for schools to where if a student is caught vaping, they don't get kicked out of school. They don't get sent to alternative school. They go to a 4-hour class that I teach, and I teach it all over the state of Tennessee. My Saturdays are very busy, but so I created that. And at first, it was just me going in and doing an evidence-based curriculum. But I built a workshop for our workshop where the students are involved, they're active, they're hands-on, and they're learning. And our data shows that they're learning. The students who take that class or even go through an assembly, they increase their knowledge about the dangers of tobacco and THC by over 70%.
Wow.
So that's going very well. So we have that, and then we do just random workshops. We'll create a workshop and we'll present it to the community and say, hey, it's this much money, and if you want to come, then come on. And when I say we, it's me and my wife. We're building this business together. Um, and we love it. We get to travel together. All of our kids are older now. We have an 18, 19, we have a 21-year-old, 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 16-year-old.
Wow.
And so we get to travel quite a bit. Our 16-year-old comes with us. She's homeschooled. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's how we're living, and that's what I do.
I think that's really cool. I work in the medical field and I see a lot of issues with people that vape and how it can affect your lungs. I also work with geriatrics and I see the effect of tobacco on your lungs as you age. And COPD is one of the worst things you can get as you age. It's a terrible chronic health condition that most people get if they've been smokers. So, yeah, I mean, being able to influence these kids at such a formative age of middle school could be life changing for them in terms of how their health looks for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? We want them to be healthy and live long, functional lives. We don't have any evidence that vaping causes cancer yet. Yet, I say yet.
Hmm.
Because there are chemicals in vapes like formaldehyde, arsenic, acetone, right? Diacetyl. And then there's chemicals that we don't even know what they are. We don't have a clue. And I tell kids this all the time, like, think about this. A rock falls from outer space. NASA's like, oh, cool, a space rock. Let's go figure out where it came from. And they can generally be like, oh, it's an asteroid rock, or this rock came from Mars or Jupiter, right? They can determine that. But we put some of these chemicals under a microscope and we're like, yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
We can't figure that out. And when you present it in that way to a kid, for them it's kind of like the light bulb goes off for a minute and they're kind of like, well, wait a second. How bad does that chemical have to be if we can't even identify it?
Why do you think vaping has become such a prevalent thing in our use right now?
Because big tobacco took their old playbook and used it with vaping, but they added something new, a new component to their marketing to kids. And that was, this is safer than smoking. And kids bought it. They bought it. They also thought that it was cool. And what we know about vaping too is that kids that own vapes, most of them own their vapes. They own their device. It's their device. But out of all of those kids, about 72% of them will also borrow a device. They're seeking social connection.
Mm.
They're not getting it from Xbox. They're not getting it from Snapchat. They're not getting it from Instagram or TikTok. They're getting it when they gather around in a bathroom and pass a vape around.
Mhm.
That's where they're getting social connection. And they're finding that their social connection, they have relatable issues. My mom is hard on me. My dad works too much. My parents got divorced. My dad unfortunately passed away from an overdose. Mine did too. They're finding that social connection and they're going, hey, yeah, that's an athlete, but I have something in common with that athlete. And I play Dungeons and Dragons and he doesn't, but we have something in common. And
Mm.
when we go to the bathroom together, that's a moment where it's like it's not just the nicotine high, it's the emotional high.
It levels.
Yeah.
It levels the playing field for them, connects them.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting when you talk about it that way. What are your plans moving forward, like in life with your new business? Tell me about some of your goals.
Yeah, so they really vary, but I have a goal for in 2026, the 2025-2026 school year. We're trying to book 60 gigs this year. And so that's one of the goals, constantly working at that. Doesn't have to be at a school, but we want 60 speaking gigs. We're also taking that workshop, we're building a online course. We want it to be available to schools so that if they do have a student who's caught vaping, that they can take that student through that workshop at school. They don't have to leave the school, but that's so we're working on that.
That's awesome. Does she speak at the middle school as well?
No, my wife is a very behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She does not want to. She like I tell her, I'm like, you have to take a picture with me because one day we're gonna be gone, and our kids are gonna be like, I want to see a picture of mom and dad, and it's just gonna be dad, right? So it's gonna be.
Funny.
She loves working behind the scenes. My youngest daughter, who's 16, she comes to the schools. She helps me set up the equipment, set up the games, set everything up, and it's really cool to have because I used to do that alone, and I'd be rushing so fast to get it all done because the school will give you like 10 minutes to get set up, and I'd be rushing and I'd forget things. And to have my 16-year-old there with the checklist going, hey, we got this, we got this, we got this, we're
That's so
good.
sweet. Yeah, that's like a family affair. That's awesome. Public speaking, if I'm quoting it right, I believe it's actually the number one fear of Americans. So, were you afraid to publicly speak? Is that something you had to really practice, or you were just like, I can talk in front of anyone?
I wanted to be a comedian when I was a kid, and I would stay up late and get in trouble for watching like A&E and Evening at the Improv, that kind of thing. But I would write jokes when I was 10, 11 years old, and I would try them out on people, and if they worked, great. If they didn't, I'd go rewrite them. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. But I got conditioned that that wasn't a real job. And so I just left it behind. But when I started this, I knew that I could stand in front of 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and make them laugh and make them cry, and then make them laugh again, and then give them a call to action. I knew that I could do that, and so it was a very easy transition for me. Jerry Seinfeld says the number one fear in life is death, or public speaking. Number two is death, which means you'd rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy.
That's so funny. I enjoy public speaking as well. I don't have that fear, but it is a really real fear for some people. I wonder too, like if it's almost easier to talk in front of kids or harder. I don't know. Kids are savage.
Easier for me to talk in front of kids than it is for me to talk in front of adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I get in my own brain because I'm like, man, all these teachers, they've got like doctorates, they've got bachelors. I don't have any of this. And I'm going to tell them, like, I'm going to go and tell them how to handle a difficult student. The best way to deal with that is A, B, and C. And then I'm like, you know what, Nate, you're the expert.
You have the life experience.
Yeah, you have the life experience. And some of them might, but I, and I don't want to say like nobody has that life, but I'm the expert in it. And I'm gonna talk about it.
Well, and you have the passion.
Yeah, the passion too. Like I need that stage. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, "Do you ever have a moment where you don't want to speak?" And I'm like, "It's not about speaking. I need that platform. I need it, and it's not because I have to feel better about myself. It's because we have such an epidemic of kids starting addiction. They're slowing down the development of their brains. They don't have any emotional strategies. They don't have any coping strategies, and they are lost. And I need that stage so that they can see somebody who will speak their language, who will be relevant to them, and who will give them a message that sticks. And that's why I need that stage. And so like I need it. Like I have to have it.
Yeah. Well, you do great on it. You have great speaking energy. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. It really is going to help so many people. You're in long-term sobriety, and that's really cool to see. And all the work that you're doing now, like with the youth, I mean, it's really inspiring. So we have made it to the lightning round of our episode. Yay. I need music. Season 2, I'll have music for this part. So the first question, I ask the same 5 questions to every guest that comes on. So the first question is, you're given 3 options. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
I don't like to fly. I'm afraid of bridges, so I guess I'm gonna have to go shark. Rather shark dive. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Oh my gosh. It's Baby, Baby, Baby by Justin Bieber.
It's such a good.
Such a banger. I love that song.
I know. And I worry about Justin Bieber. We could do a whole podcast episode on him, but somebody needs to, and it's his actually a great topic for our podcast because he is giving us all of the Amy Winehouse signs. He is giving us so many signs that there's trouble. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I just really hope that he gets help before anything bad happens, you know? But that song, you're right, is a banger. All right, number 3. What is your favorite Disney movie?
I'm gonna go with Toy Story. My dad took me to see Toy Story, and it's just one of the best times that we ever had. So
So sweet.
yeah.
The first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
first
good.
one. There's a
Number 4.
snake.
Oh my gosh, yes. So many good one-liners. Number 4. What is something you're obsessed with?
I have ADHD, so like everything I get obsessed with, it seems like something I'm obsessed with the Chicago Cubs.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with the Chicago Cubs. I'm a huge Cubs fan, always will be. And Knoxville has the minor league team, the Tennessee Smokies, so they're the minor league Cubs. So yeah,
I did not know this. This is
Yeah.
so interesting. I love Chicago.
I do too.
Okay. Number 5, last question. What does freedom mean to you?
Gosh, that's a tough one. What does it mean to me? Peace. It means peace. I think when you have freedom, that you have a peace about you that it's hard for other people to understand. And I'm a believer in Jesus, and I think that my freedom really isn't mine. It comes from Christ. It was that grace and that mercy that gave me this freedom, but that freedom also provided peace. I think that there's a correlation between the two.
Yeah.
I just think that, freedom is peace.
That's
You don't have to worry. You don't have to be anxious. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to wish. You just have freedom to live in peace. And the Bible says that Christ provides a peace that surpasses all understanding. And so that's why some people don't get it. My car broke down the other day, and I was with my son, and he was like, "You got to get rid of this car, man. This thing, it just." And I'm like, "Buddy, it's not a big deal. Like it's gonna be okay. It's fine." And he just, I don't know, he just couldn't. He's so mad at that car right now. Still is. Still is.
Oh my gosh.
But
Well,
it's
that was a
peace.
beautiful answer. I love peace, contentment. I agree with that. I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah.
You're going to help so many people with your stories. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Okay, bye.
Bye.